Good evening and welcome. I'm Paul Amos, founder of The Redeemed. The Redeemed is a ministry that helps men overcome life's difficulties and to celebrate the triumphs of overcoming those difficulties. We're a community of men that accepts people from all backgrounds, and we're here today to talk to you and give you an inspired message from Garrett Barbush. Garrett, thank you and welcome to the show. We appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to come and speak to us about your life and about Men of Iron.
Hey, Paul, thanks for having me. Really grateful to be here. And looking forward to our good conversation here.
Thank you. Well, we'll start the same way we start with all of our guests and ask you a little bit about what redemption means to you.
Oh, man, that's a loaded question. But I think just for time's sake today, when I think of that word redemption, I think of it's in simplicity, the cross, right? Just kind of coming off of a time of year that we think about those things, right? And we think about the power of the cross. And so when I think of redemption, I think of getting something back, right? I think of the debt that's paid for us. I think of kind of a fresh start. That's really, in my mind, redemption's about getting right back on the right path, right? Not our path, but the path that God's got for us. And we need to fully understand that that's not possible without the cross. So that's what I think about.
Wonderful. Well, Garrett, we know you lead a powerful ministry and we're very excited to hear about it, but could you tell us, if you don't mind for a moment, a little bit about what brought you to Christ and your experience and your salvation?
Yeah. I think we could probably take 30 minutes to get into all the details of that. But, I think the important pieces is that I had a great family. I had a great father. I had a great mother, a praying mother, a prayer warrior of a mother that prayed for her kids, not just day and night, but through the night. And so I think I owe a lot of credit to her. I think God really honored her prayers. And so we were a family that we were at church every Sunday, right? We were at church Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday. But like a lot of people, I didn't really kind of own my faith and kind of lived two lives there through my teenage years, young adult years. But I would say I really started to own my faith toward the latter part of college, junior, senior year, really started to have a man in my life by the name of Dr. Shane Johnson. He was one of my professors and ended up being a pastor of mine while I was in college. And he was really the first guy to kind of grip me up and really say, hey, this is how you live life as a man. This is what a man is. This is what a man does. This is how a man treats a woman, right? He just woke me up. And I didn't get it all right away, but he was definitely the one that planted a lot of seeds in my life that coming out of college, I really said, hey, I got to figure this thing out and really start owning this for myself. And that really just kind of led me right to the marketplace, which then ended up leading me into ministry. So that's kind of a 30,000 foot view.
Well, it's wonderful that you had such a blessed experience in growing up in your childhood, to have two loving parents who were, helping lead you toward God's path. But I appreciate you sharing about the fact that you felt like you had two different lives going on. For so many members of our audience, that has been a big struggle for them. They had what was going on the outside, very different than what was going on the inside. It's a big part of my personal journey and my story. I was living one life out exterior and living another life on the interior, and coming to a place where Christ helped me understand that I needed to live the same life and be cohesive on the outside and the inside was critical to my journey to finally find Christ and to, develop into the man that he wanted me to be. Hence the name, The Redeemed. Hence the name that we're going out. And we believe that God, through Isaiah, really talked to us about the fact that he wanted us to be redeemed and he wanted to mentor us. And I know that, mentorship and sonship is a big part of what has led you to this ministry. And so maybe you could talk for a few minutes about what Men of Iron is and about the concepts of mentorship.
Yeah. So I think, practically speaking, we're an organization. We've got a vision that God gave us 15 years ago to change a culture one man at a time is our vision. We believe there's an issue in culture, right? And the issue isn't necessarily men. We believe men are the solution, right? And so we really feel as though the issue is how culture itself is defining success for men, right? And so there's a lot of, we don't have to sit here and talk about that. We know how culture is trying to define success as men and strip away masculinity from men and everything else. And so we just really feel called to say, hey, we're here to change that culture, and God's going to do that. We're just going to be his vessels to kind of do the work that he's calling us to do. But we do have a mission, and that mission is to equip men to really kind of do three things. Number one, seek accountability, or to embrace leadership. I'm sorry. Number one, to embrace leadership, like to understand that we each have a leadership role, and some might have bigger platforms than others, Paul, but at the end of the day, we're all leaders of our own culture. We all have our own culture that we need to understand what that culture is, right? And we need to embrace the leadership that comes along with that. We need to seek accountability, and we need to pursue mentorship. And so our whole mission is to equip men to do those three things: to embrace leadership, seek accountability, and pursue mentorship. And by providing the tools and training for growth in what we call our 5F framework: faith, family, friends, fitness, and finances. And so we like simplicity. Men love simplicity. And so our simplicity is the 5F framework and those three things of, embracing leadership, seeking accountability, and ultimately pursuing mentorship.
Well, that's a great model. And all three of those things are critical to the development and the ability to go along life's journey. Tell us a little bit more about 5Fs, and tell us about the framework of what you're trying to develop in men.
Yeah. So, I think for one of the things that we have found is that you can't put mentorship in a box. And even though that we've done that to a certain degree, we have a product that you can buy that is our mentorship package that you can buy to mentor another man, or you use it if you're being mentored even. And we put that in a box, but we never designed it to be content driven, right? Mentorship is not content. And so I think it's one of those things that, we're really at this place where we believe that mentorship is this experience. And so we said, okay, how do we simplify this? Because we found early on, right, that it's not that men weren't willing to mentor or be mentored. It was really like, I don't know what to do. And so several years in, we had a board member that brought this 5F framework to the table. It wasn't ours, and we didn't define it. It was out there for years and years and years. In fact, I think he found it like in an FCA article back in the 70s or 80s or something like that. And he had just kind of used this framework for his life. And we said, man, this is great. This is great for mentorship, right? Because like two men can meet and you lay out faith, family, friends, fitness, and finances. And for most of us men, like that's our life, right? That is what defines us as men right there. Faith, family, friends, fitness, and finances. We can put action steps, we can put goals, we can clearly define what a plan for our life in those 5 areas. And we have to be intentional in those areas. And I know one of the things that we've found over the last 15 years is that most of us men are walking around and we're probably doing a pretty good job in 1, maybe 2, maybe 3 of those areas. But the danger is that it's not that we're even trying to be malicious in these other areas that we're not doing well in, but all it takes is for one of those areas, right? One of those F's to be out of balance, and it can sink your ship, right? So my faith can be strong, right? And I can have a great family, but if I'm not taking care of myself physically, right? Well, how am I going to be around to take care of my family, and how am I going to be around to share my faith, right? So, and vice versa. I can have all the money in the world and I can have great faith, but if my family's a mess, right? Well, how's that going to work out? So we're just really big on the balance in those 5 areas.
That's wonderful. Yeah, obviously, this is a one-on-one mentorship. It feels like today in many of the churches that are out there, small groups have become the path that people talk about in terms of development of themselves and development of their relationship with Christ. But talk a little bit about the critical nature of this being a one-on-one mentorship.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think it's often the biggest hurdle that we have to face when it comes to church partnerships, because so many churches are small group driven, right? That's the angle. That's what works. It's what scales. It's what's efficient. But what we have found for men, and again, this is through research and development that we've done. This is through going out and meeting men face to face and finding out what they're hungry for. Men are going to get, and again, I want to be careful how I say this because we love the local church, right? But Men are often going to get dragged to a small group, but they're going to willingly go to a one-to-one mentorship meeting. And I think that's where there's the greatest opportunity for accountability in that one-to-one setting. There's the greatest opportunity to discuss the balance in his life in that one-to-one setting. And there's the greatest opportunity for spiritual growth. And the reason for that is because you've got one mentor and one protege. You've got two guys that are focused on each other, right? And they put God at the center of that. Man, some powerful stuff can happen. And so it is a challenge for us right now. It's been a challenge for 15 years because the church does seem to be going more small group kind of model, but the churches that we are partnered with that kind of go outside the lane a little bit and say, hey, we're going to make a platform for men to get in one-to-one mentorships, man, amazing things happen.
Well, that's wonderful. You talk about embracing leadership and pursuing mentorship. Those are two things that I think are at the heart of what people are looking for. On the flip side, seeking accountability isn't always something that I feel like men are looking for. Talk for a minute about the critical nature of accountability in this, and what do men need to be prepared for as they enter a mentoring relationship about accountability?
Yeah, I think there's three things that men are always going to are going to be the things that determine what a man's going to get involved in. Number one is, how much time do I need to commit to this, right? Number two is going to be, what's my financial commitment? So time, finances, and that third one is, okay, who am I going to be with here? Who am I accountable to? And I think there's varying degrees. And so what we've done at Men of Iron is we've created what we feel like God's given us, this mountain for men. And so at base camp, okay, it's a low degree of all three of those things. Not a whole lot of time commitment, not a whole lot of financial commitment. And really, you're not accountable to anything, right? These are our free resources guys can grab off our websites or off our website, and they can kind of get involved and kind of go through things at their own pace. But the downside, there's not much accountability, Paul. And so as you move up the mountain, each of those things kind of get bigger and bigger. And mentorship is at the summit. That's really the ultimate experience that we really want to see men experience. And accountability is at the top there. And I think very few of us men, not just in the United States, but across the world, very few people in this world are truly accountable, meaning they are fully transparent. They've got somebody that's there encouraging them, challenging them, maybe kicking them in the rear when they need to be kicked in the rear. But I think the view or the perception of accountability is wrong. I think a lot of people have this perception of accountability with shame, like, oh, I don't want to be honest because then I feel shameful. That's why we have accountability, right? Like, accountability is so that we don't have to experience shame. So I think it's just a mindset shift for a lot of people. But in reality, we see accountability play out all throughout Scripture. And I look at, some of these prophets were accountable to God. You have somebody like a Moses who had Aaron in his corner, right? You look at the disciples and how accountable they were to Jesus, and how Jesus really challenged them and encouraged them and called them out when they needed to be called out, right? Like, these are the things I feel like are slowly fading from our culture, that we're trying to say, hey, we feel like God's given us a burden to get these things back here and present.
We talk a lot about sharing your story here at the Redeemed, and we know that if people will go out and actually share their story one-on-one, that it actually inspires men to not only be accountable, but to open up, to truly become transparent about what's happening in their lives. How do you encourage mentors to open up and tell their story to their mentees? And is that a critical component of the mentor-mentee relationship?
Yeah. And I think sometimes there's no perfect formula for doing this, right? Every guy is different. And that's what we found, is that every man is bringing a different story. You've got different personalities. You've got different levels of trust. You've got different experiences that can cause trust to be strong. And you've got different experiences that's why guys are coming into a mentorship jaded and hurt and broken already, is because they've had another man fail them in the past. And so our encouragement is, yeah, hey, guys, we want you to get down to business here, but you also need to understand that sometimes we can make this way too complicated. And sometimes simplicity in building relationships and building mentorships is the best thing that we can do. at the end of the day, mentorship is all about, and transparency, it's all about relational trust, right? It's about building relationships and just letting somebody know and showing somebody that you truly do care and that you can be trusted, and vice versa. And so a lot of the times what we're finding is just saying, guys, you don't need to come into this like 100%. Well, I got to check every box and do everything so that we can get this mentorship started. Sometimes you just need to go to a baseball game, right? Like sometimes you just need to go out to the golf course. Sometimes you just need to go shoot some guns and just truly build a relationship. That is another thing that's kind of dwindling from our culture, is literally spending time face to face with nobody looking at their watch, right? And nobody thinking about work and nobody thinking about family obligations, like literally just kind of spending time together. And I think that's sometimes all it takes for guys to kind of build relationships and build trust. But if it's not, if a mentorship is not getting to a place, right, where guys are truly being transparent, like at some point, one of the mentor or the protege alike, like somebody's got to make that decision to say, hey, I'm going to break down this wall here. And I think we really encourage the mentors to share their story first and to say, hey, you are that role, the mentor. This guy is probably not intentionally, but just kind of automatically kind of putting you up on this pedestal because you're a mentor, and you need to bring yourself off that pedestal and get on his level, because the mentor grows in this process just as much as the protege, sometimes more.
It would seem to me that proteges would be hungry for mentorship. But tell me a little bit about how you draw them into Men of Iron, and talk about a little bit about how you also inspire mentors and the difficulty you may have in either of these categories in getting people to step forward and participate.
Yeah, I think so. There's a couple things. Number one, I think time. Okay. So that's a big thing that we're just trying to, like, everybody's busy, right? But we all make time for things that are important to us. And so that's one of the things that we say, hey, this time excuse, like, let's throw that out the window. Cause you might be really busy running a business. You might be really busy with a family, but you know, you're still going and playing golf on the weekends, right? And you're still going to, and watching Sunday night football. Like, you're still doing these other things. Why? Because they're important to you. Right. And so we're trying to frame that up as a time can't be an excuse. I think the biggest hurdle that we're facing is we can have a spreadsheet full of guys that are hungry for mentorship. I think the challenge in that is they don't always know. They're expecting some man to come into their life and like kind of save them. And we're saying, no, that's not how mentorship works here. Mentorship is a protege driven process, meaning I'm the protege. I have to be the one to say, I'm taking responsibility for my own growth. I'm going to lay down my life. I'm going to follow Christ, and I'm going to be the one that contacts my mentor. I'm going to be the one that does the work that I need to do between meetings. I'm going to be the one that follows up with my mentor and initiates contact with him and initiates communication with him. Like, those are all things that define mentorship. And I think that's what makes our model a little, and our approach to mentorship a little bit more unique, is that sometimes and I think the church has done this even, is that these mentors, these guys in the faith, are supposed to be the ones going out and bringing people in. And listen, there's a component of that we are supposed to do as believers. But at the end of the day, Jesus said, follow me, right? And the disciples had to make a decision. Like, Jesus wasn't making them do it. They had free will in this whole thing. But once they made the decision to follow him, right, then a dynamic thing took place that changed the course, changed the history of the world. But it was really on their protege to take that, and they had to leave their families. They had to leave their job. They had to like take ownership of everything. And I think that's really the narrative that we're trying to take part in and maybe change a little bit when it comes to growing in the faith, is saying, hey, it's not a pastor's job to do that. It's not a church's job to save you. It's not another man's job to save you. You have to willingly step up and do the things that it's required to do. And guess what? You've got to give your time. You've got to invest some finances. You've got to, and be willing to be held accountable. So that's a big piece with proteges. That's a hurdle to get over. And I think just on the mentor side, it's really a matter of, well, I'm serving here, I'm serving there, I'm already doing this, I'm on the elder team at the church, and I'm running a business. And again, we're saying, okay, but are you spending one-to-one time, intentional time with a mentorship framework where you're literally praying about who to mentor? That's the other thing that we're really trying to get men is, Just take 48 hours to pray. God's going to put somebody in your heart. Don't say you don't know who to mentor. You got neighbors, you got community members, you got employees, you got friends, you got family members. Let's just actively and intentionally take some time to pray about who in my life can God can use me to change their life, right? Like God's going to do all that. He's going to give you the words you need. He's going to give you the wisdom you need. But I think it's just a matter of trying to frame up mentorship as a priority in people's lives.
Yeah. Well, as I think about the things that have challenged the mentor-protege relationship, nothing has been a bigger push against relationship than COVID. And it separated us from the church. It separated us from individuals. We locked ourselves away. And maybe you can talk for a minute about how COVID impacted the business that you're involved in, the foundation of charity that you're involved in, and a little bit about how Men of Iron overcame COVID.
Yeah. So I think for the first, several years of what we were doing here. So we've been around as a ministry for 15. We've been active as like an actual organization for 10. It was a ministry for the last 15 years. For the first 5 years, we ran out of a local church that our founder and chairman, Brian Zemer, he kind of ran it on, in his own time and on the side out of Victory Church in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. And then once we decided to kind of become an organization, right, and God was leading us that direction to help other churches do this, that was really our model for a lot of years, was like a parachurch ministry. We would go in and partner with churches and help them get these mentorships off the ground and running with our framework and our resources and our tools and training. And then we had a lot of momentum. I mean, we grew all over the country and we were in every different kind of church, different denominations. And God was moving. It was a really good thing. It was a really cool thing. And there was a lot of things that we learned in that time period, but then COVID hit. And a majority of churches across the country just shut their doors. And I'll tell you, it made us look in the mirror for a while, because we had been talking for quite a while about the challenges of our church partnership model. A lot of times that process to get up and running was very long. You had the different approval processes with different churches and budget concerns and just all these different things that we just kept having to jump over these hurdles. And so we kept saying, well, what about guys that like want to be involved in mentorship, but that aren't at a church partner? Like there's way more of them out there, and we know that. And so when COVID hit, that really allowed us to look in the mirror and say, hey, how do we go from more of this business to business model to more of a business to consumer model? Like, how do we actually meet men right where they are? And God really provided all that clarity to us in that time frame. And so it's not that we're moving away from our church partnership model. We still love the local church and want to help churches reach their men and build a strategy for mentorship for their men. We do that a little bit differently now, but I think the exciting piece is now what we're doing is, saying, hey, we're here for a man to come to our website or to come into our organization. We're going to help him find a mentor. We're going to help him find a protege. And one of the ways we're doing that is we're getting ready to kind of release a software that is essentially like a mentorship finder, where you can come in and fill out a profile as a mentor, as a protege. And that process is vetted out. We make sure that just not anybody can get through there, but we make sure that, you have all your information, and basically it's going to be able to spit out to you potential mentors and potential proteges. And so it's not a very masculine thing, but it sounds like a match.com almost but for men wanting to be engaged in mentorships. And so this is a big deal. It's a big technology push for us. And we feel like it's the way of the future to help the next generation of men engage with the next generation, right? Of a generation that's older than them, or to help the older generation engage with the younger generation. I think that's really the true pandemic that's taking place in our world right now, is the lack of intergenerational mentorships, right? Guys in their 50s and 60s spending intentional time with guys in their 20s and 30s. So that's really kind of the shift that we're doing. And we've done that by providing kind of a mountain for men, right? And our call to action right now is really just say, get on the mountain. And there's different parts of the mountain, and there's different forms of mentorship that guys can get involved in. So, everything from devotionals that you can do through your own to video series that you can do through your own at the base camp, and moving up that mountain. We've got small group resources, for churches that are small group based. But the whole thing, everything that we do pushes up the mountain. It is encouraging mentorship. It's encouraging the 5F model. And we ultimately want to see guys land at the top. But you don't just stop there either. I think that's the big piece that I want to get across today is once you experience mentorship, now you got to come back down off that mountain, right? And find that guy that might be at base camp or might not even be on the mountain yet. And you got to really encourage him to get on the mountain with you.
So mentorship can last for a lifetime, and truly having people that are in your life and that you seek them out. But how long does your core program last? Because you talk about climbing that mountain. What should a person, if they enter as a protege, think about in terms of the time commitment to become someone perhaps down the road that is a mentor?
Yeah. So the way that God really kind of designed it for, gave us clarity around this was that men need a start date and an end date. And that's just important. And so Strong 27 is the mentorship experience that we're discussing. And Strong 27 is built on a 12-month commitment. And so you start and you end 12 months later. It's 1 year. The requirement is to meet with your mentor or protege 2 times a month. You meet on your own schedule. You can kind of go through the experience at your own pace. We're really big on 90 days. Men lose focus after 90 days. That's what we found. And so there's kind of a good hard restart every 90 days of that mentorship. And we're very big on men are men, right? Like we like to fix the problems in our lives. And so what we were finding in the early days is that guys were coming in maybe with that marriage problem or that finance problem or whatever it might be in their life that's going on. And they mentor and protege alike were men. We want to fix things. So they were attacking the problem. And in a lot of times, a lot of great things were happening, but through just some research and development, what we were finding is that guys were not necessarily diving into the word together. They weren't building spiritual disciplines together. And that was when the red flag went up for us. And we said, hey, we're going to design this. We're going to kind of manipulate this a little bit and readapt here. And what we're going to do is we're going to come out of this mentorship gate. So they get trained up. And then what we do now is in that first 90 days, we tell the guys, hey, we really want you focused on your faith. What does God want from you in your faith over the next 90 days? And specifically focus the mentorship on that. And so that really builds the foundation, right? And then once that initial 90 days is up, we continue with the faith component, but we give guys that permission to say, now bring another F in, or bring 2 of them in, or bring 3 of them in, but keep it simple. And so that's how it lays out over 12 months is every 90 day, there's kind of a new focus.
So you've laid out how people can go and your new software that you're going to be building or you have built that's going to help mentors and proteges come together. And you've talked a little bit about some of the reasons for this. For men that are out there sitting on the fence who are apprehensive about this and the commitment to this, what advice would you give them about the critical nature of this for their lives?
Yeah, I think number one, I'd like to speak just to potential prospective proteges, right? Guys that are saying, hey, maybe I'm just got married. I'm just starting a career. I'm just starting a family. I'm in a new season of life. I think sometimes we in our heads think that those guys are in their 20s and 30s. And a lot of the times they are, right? But I also have seen proteges that are just entering a season of life, empty nesters, right? Guys that their kids are going away and they're looking across the table with this woman they've been married to for 25 years and they're in a new season of life. Like, holy cow, what an opportunity to be a protege. Go find somebody to mentor you that's been there and done that before and been in that season, right? So I think it's just a matter of trying to find the pain points in your life right now. And it doesn't always have to be pain points. It doesn't need to be trauma. It doesn't need to be bad things. It can be great opportunities that are ahead of you, right? That just require the wisdom of another godly man. And so I think the bottom line is every man should be in a mentorship. We should all have somebody ahead of us and we should all have somebody behind us. And I think it's just a matter of saying, well, yeah, I want to invest in myself. Like, this is an investment into yourself. First and foremost, it's an investment in your relationship with God. There's plenty of time for that. You should be making time for that, regardless of how busy you are. Right. And so that would be my challenge, just understanding that mentorship's for everybody. And then I would say to guys that are maybe on the fence as far as being mentors, man, if you're leading your 5Fs well and you're not being used by the Holy Spirit to really bring another man along, man, you have an awesome opportunity, right? And so that's really my call to action for all of those guys, to say you have so much to offer. And yes, like, I know you're busy. We know you're busy. We know you got things going on, but we often think of and really challenge ourselves with, like, what good is it, right, for a man to profit the whole world, but to forfeit his soul? And so we can really have the opportunity through mentorship to make sure that that doesn't happen for men, not just in your city or town or community, but your state and across the country and across the world. And so that's really our challenge, is to help guys understand that you've got something to offer because you've got a story, and everybody's story is important and it can help somebody else in this world.
Well, Garrett, thank you to Men of Iron. Thank you to you. Appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to come on the show today and to tell us a little bit about how being a mentor or protege can truly transform who you are and your path in life. To everyone who's been out in our audience tonight, we thank you so much for coming on and listening. We hope that we continue to bring you amazing content. We ask you to continue to follow us on social media and look forward to our next podcast next month. God bless and have a wonderful evening.